Today's episode begins at the Smithsonian where right away it's under attack by Wily's robots. You should be getting used to this routine by now. Anyway, the reason they're here is because they're searching for some gemstones. Let's see what our heroes are up to before getting dragged into the action.
I'm going to pieces, Dr. Light.
Don't lose your head.
Yeah, it seems they're giving Roll a tune-up. I guess sucking up various things with her vacuum arm are clogging up her systems or something. Soon the alarm goes off, and this time only a video feed is shown. I'm going to operate under the assumption that with frequent Wily attacks, Light designed security features to detect such attacks, especially at certain places. But hey, we have to get the blue bomber and his robotic dog involved somehow. This fight seems over, but the episode's just started. The Robot Masters have found these red gemstones and uses the smaller ones to power shrink rays they seem to have pulled out of,
Buttheads!
Thank you, Mega. However, no amount of name-calling can save Mega Man and Rush from being reduced to the size of action figures.
Take this!
Oh, you're killing me! With laughter?
The two use their new size to give the Robot Masters the slip. We soon learn Wily's plan, or at least part of it. He uses the bigger gem on his Skulker, aka Wily Machine 4, to power a larger shrink ray, one capable of shrinking entire cities. The question I have right now is, where's Mega Man?
Careful!
Okay.
That was the last place they'd have looked for us.
Thanks, episode. You may notice that the city is smaller than Mega Man here. I'm going to assume that the bigger gem shrink ray made things smaller than the handheld units and move on. Mega Man escapes and calls Dr. Light Collect and informs him about the shrink ray. That way he can get started on the episode's problem solver. Mega Man and Rush fly around to discover 3 cities have shrunk: DC, Chicago, and New York. I said in an earlier review that Light Labs was in New York, but as Mega Man points out, it's just out of range of the shrink ray. Convenient. Also convenient is that he comes across 3 shady art-dealing criminals boarding a ship bound for Wily's private island. I think we can see where this is going.
Oh, that's okay, Switsy. No one is there.
At least no one knows we're here.
Spoke too soon, eh, Mega? Earlier, Proto Man released a squad of Batautons made specifically to track Tiny Mega Man. Normally, these wouldn't be a problem for our blue hero, but given his current condition, he has to rely on the power of a water hose. Still, the Batautons serve their purpose as they allow the Robot Masters to catch up. Mega Man and Rush escape, and by escape, I mean getting tossed overboard. But what comes out of this is that now, Mega Man and Rush have one of the handheld shrink rays. They make their way to Wily's island where, yep, Wily's selling the cities to these criminals. He's going to use the money to build replacement cities filled with robots under his control. Each of the criminals bought a city, but Wily wisely chose to bring only one to his island. He doesn't want to be cheated out of the deal. He has his Robot Masters escort them to the location of the other cities, aka the Robot Masters van. After loading each city to each car, the criminal caravan takes off. Mega Man boards the car of the lady criminal and forces it to stop. Luckily, Roll was able to track Mega Man with a signal booster and scares the lady and the dog away. Good thing you got that tune-up, huh, my dear? Roll brought the episode's problem-solving device. I'm going to call it a magic wand because it turns the gems blue, which means it can reverse the shrink effects. You know, for all my bark about this episode, I do like this bit here. Mega Man's worried about how much power the gem has left, and he would rather use all of it to restore the cities and the people inside at the cost of himself and Rush remaining small. That's a true hero right there, folks. A car chase happens with Mega Man boarding the Robot Master van first. He's after the 2 remaining small gems.
I'll nail him.
Sorry, Cutman. Thanks to Dustman's power, Mega Man's going to nail you, or screw you, and I should move on. Once the Robot Masters are taken care of, Roll causes the 2 remaining criminal vehicles to crash. Now remember, they have actual cities in the trunks of their cars. But hey, the criminals are fine. I'm sure the cities are too. One thing left to do is recover the big red gem from Wily. So Mega Man and Rush track them to New Jersey and force the Shrink Ray to fire on the Skulker. Wily and Proto Man escape, and Roll catches the Shrink Ray and the Big Gem before it falls to the ground. Everything's resolved off screen. The cities are returned to normal. I assume they're at their original locations. The criminals, except for Wily of course, are arrested, and all the gems are now blue, which means they can never be used to shrink anything again. I wonder how the Smithsonian is going to react to that. However, we've got to maintain the status quo, so Dr. Light uses the last of the gem's power to restore Mega Man and Rush to normal, and we end on a pretty heartwarming scene. Shrinking heroes in media is such a cliche, might as well have Mega Man join in on the act. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the writer of this episode, Gary Greenfield, might have been influenced by previous shrinking stories. Crystals, or gems in this case, are the main catalyst for the size changes, which is something the 80s Ninja Turtles did in their cartoon. The big difference is that here, technology has to be used in conjunction with the gems, instead of pointing the gem raw and have it do its thing automatically. Some of you might ask, where did these gems come from? How did Wily and later Light know enough about them for their doohickeys to work? The episode never goes into detail about it. They're just plot MacGuffins so that we can have the shrinking hero gimmick. Speaking of shrinking, this leads to what I think is another major influence in this episode: shrinking and bottling cities. This should be familiar if you know your Superman lore, as that's what the villain Brainiac does. Unlike Brainiac, Wily's not preserving these cities for knowledge. He's selling them to criminals so he could fund construction for replacement cities under his control. This world-conquering idea is both crazy and logical. Wily building a city from the ground up would avoid changing current infrastructures to match his vision, and he realizes it's going to cost money for materials. As for how he's going to get materials, through shady corporations, or buying them from other criminals. Our guest star Robot Master is Dustman from Mega Man 4, and his redesign mostly matches his game counterpart, except like Toadman, he has a mouth. It's not as noticeable unless he talks. In the game, his weapon, called Dust Crusher, is just him using the head vacuum to shoot debris at Mega Man, although he can also use the head vacuum to try and suck in Mega Man. There was more focus on the vacuum portion in the episode, especially after Mega Man copied his power and actually took the vacuum characteristics while using it, which is something the games will never do. This is an average episode if you can look past the logistics of the gems and whatnot. There are some good moments that I pointed out earlier, and I believe this is the first time we don't have a Proto Man obsessing over Mega Man moment. The criminals were there to show where Wily might get some money for his operations. Which I have to ask, did they pay with cash? And if so, did Wily keep it, or did it shrink with his airship? Let's see, the next episode on my list, Bot Transfer. So we're going from the shrinking hero cliche to the mind swap cliche.
Huh? We'd better check out that alarm.
Hey, what about